The average man in America has less than one true friend. In 2023, the Surgeon General said, "We are facing a loneliness epidemic." I want to change that. You don't have to be alone. Dude, you need a friend. A friend who can help you make better choices, move with more of who you are, and live a better, fuller life for yourself and the world around you. I believe we can change the world if we can change friendship. This is the 7 Daily Choices Friendship Project Podcast, and that's what we're doing.
Well, I was thinking about that on the way over. I've been thinking about it for a while, but my grandfather and my mom, which would have been my mom's dad, never knew strangers. Everyone, and it's a shame to say that there are people that knew him and he knew, and I would say, "Hey Pat, who was it?" "Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
I've known him for 30 years. I mean, but then of course he knew everyone on his road where they lived, and they were farmers and they knew everybody. But he was out and about because he was in Hillsborough sometimes to do business. He was in Lynchburg sometimes to do business, and feed mills and whatever. And it's just certain people who come in and out of there that from other areas that, well, they would always say, "Hey, yeah, and
yeah." And you've done the same way.
And it's just I think there are people who are open. There are people who just, I don't know, automatically feel comfortable in your presence, and I don't know why. It just, some people have to work at being, I should say work at being a friend, but, they have to put themselves out there. They only have and then there's a ton of people I said, I know as acquaintances, and then there are people that live in this town that I haven't seen in a while, that if I called on them because of our past, they would probably do nefarious things.
They'd show up married bodies.
I shouldn't say that there are people in law enforcement that.
Yeah. Well, but the last time you did something nefarious, I mean, aside from Sunday night, was.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been a long time, right? I mean, you haven't done anything nefarious in years, so let's not worry. Well, at least not that we're telling on camera for everybody to see. All right, let's talk so that people. So first things first, kind of let people know who you are. So, your life. I'm going to check the cameras, make sure they're all right. Well, you just kind of let them know. Let us know who you are, what you've done, how your life, how you've spent your life.
How I've got to this point.
How'd you survive? So.
Well, first of all, I want to introduce myself. My name is John Chaney.
Yes.
I'm I should say a lifelong resident of Wilmington. I moved over here in '78. I had just gotten hired at Cincinnati Millicron. Worked there for about 6.5 years as the market changed. The Japanese started to infiltrate the machine tool industry, which kind of Millicron's fault. The Japanese lived over at Millicron, and they decided, they sected these machines and bought them and sent them back to Japan. But long story short, I made it through 3 layoffs, got laid off started in November of '77, was laid off in August of '83. And so, I had 6.5 years, and then they started getting people with 15 and 20, and it was a horrible cutback. And this area started to suffer kind of because of that, because Millicron was a big impact player in the market, and they employed a lot of people from this part of the world as well as Erwin Auger bit. So then I did. I drew unemployment for a while. Ended up working at Furman, Washington. Due to circumstances there, I ended my career early there and started a whole new career in '92, starting out as an apprentice in a cabinet shop, and that apprenticeship took me 31 years into the business, where I become a custom cabinet finisher and furniture finisher. All of our jobs were for high-end clientele, Greater Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, and I'm talking, the Fortune 500 type people.
Yeah, you've been in some of the.
I've been in some of, you're
places
talking
now.
about people like the
Yeah.
lenders and the
Yeah.
AG Lafleys, who was the CEO of my wife's company that she works for now, P&G. Richard Farmer, he's now deceased, but he was the CEO of Centos. Several of the lenders. He did a couple jobs for some baseball players. Tom Browning, who has passed away for the Reds. Ken Griffey Jr.
Man.
Just a slew of people, and people that had no qualms about spending money, and they spent it, and it kept me employed for many years. And then our company burned in 2007. Was absorbed by another company, and they let us go after about a year and a half, because that was due to the agreement between our former owner and the new owner. And we were let go on, this is odd, we were let go on 2009, on Friday the 13th. We came back from lunch, and they called us in and says, hey, we've decided that we don't need your services anymore. And basically, I wasn't even out of work 2 weeks. What was ironic was I had long hair, wore my hair in a ponytail, not a big deal, always kept it neat and clean. And I thought, well, if I'm going to have to go out and hunting in the job market, I need, it's unfortunate, appearances are the first thing we see. We judge people by appearances, right? So I cut my hair, and it ended up on the front page of the newspaper, Slow News Day. It was a funny story. And
Yeah, but you've been in this community with your hair.
Yeah, and the people and it was crazy. People come, hey, you're on the front page of the newspaper, like I wanted to be. But long story short, went to a place that I knew I probably could get employment, because I knew they needed a finisher, and they hired me on the spot, basically. They just basically, I said, don't you want to see what I can do? They said, well, we'll bring you in on a Saturday. And for about 2 hours or so, I did a little project for them. And they said, we saw it, we see enough, we know. And so, 11 years later, was at that age, and they were starting to, it was after COVID. Well, we were still in COVID. Things were starting to change. The circle was growing smaller. Couldn't find people to work. Couldn't find people that were experienced to do what we did, and so they decided to say, "Hey, we're going to ship the bigger stuff out to a larger company in Dayton." And I kind of saw it coming, not a surprise. So long story short, they gave me a package, and do something I had never done. I had because of COVID and because of the situation, I was able to draw unemployment. Didn't have to go look for a job. Now, I still made contact with people who were still in the business, in the industry. And in fact, I actually worked for a gentleman that needed some help for a short period of time. But December the 31st, 2020, I officially retired from the workforce. And now here I am. So
you don't do anything.
I don't do anything right. It seems that way, but
no.
Running errands for people. I love to drive, so I reconnected with a friend who's not able to drive, so I take him to his doctor's appointments, take him shopping. We get out maybe once a week, just for him to get out of the house because he can't drive. And, he was very active in his day. He lost part of his foot due to diabetes. He just he didn't take care of himself, and he had some other issues, vascular, that created this issue. So we reconnected, know his mother very well, wonderful woman. So I just try to lend what I can lend to anyone who's in need. They need an errand run. I run people to their doctor's appointments. I even took a friend of ours to her procedure last summer because she didn't have any family around, and so I volunteered. She asked a woman that she knew, and I said, hey, I'm available. I said, if you feel comfortable, it was just here at Clinton Memorial. I said, hey, I'll be more than happy to. And she said, well, if you're comfortable with it, I said, if you're comfortable with it, I'm good. And, I did. And wasn't a big deal. But, I've always had people in my life who were always kind to me and generous to me when they didn't need to be. So, try to return that. Yeah. It's been a blessing to help people, and it's better to give than receive. Well, the truth of the matter is, for me it is. And so I have certain skill sets, and I like to drive, and I like to, any function I can.
Pretty good
And
shopper.
and a pretty good shopper, and the wife always has honeydews for me at the house, which I get behind on, and then I have to,
Yeah, then it's honey, not honeydews, it's honey nows.
oh my gosh. Yeah.
All right, and so you're married, just the two of you,
Yes,
not able to have
not
children,
able to have
so.
children. We'll be married, Lord willing,
Mhm.
by the grace of God. 36 years, October the 8th of
Yeah.
this year. Dated my wife for nearly 2 years. Met her on a blind date, which was funny. Her best friend was dating a very good friend of mine, and they hooked us up. Blind date. And blind dates aren't supposed to work out well. Here we are, 36 years later.
Yeah.
I asked her to marry me 1 year and 11 months to the day we met on July the 3rd, 1986. So actually it was it was June the 3rd, 1988. I asked her to marry me. And fast forward a few months later, we're married.
Yeah.
But
And
I was
you,
getting close to the point of getting kicked to the curb because
right,
my
you've been
future
at
wife
it.
didn't think I had any ambition or initiative.
Well, she wasn't all wrong. No.
You can't have it all
I
right.
love you, right. But, right, if you got all that, why you gotta have
Come
ambition,
on,
right?
Come on, man. I'll let someone else carry the load.
Hey, so, of course, your wife has enough ambition for all of us, but, and we
That's
love
true,
you, Susan.
that's
But,
That's true.
but, you know what it means that October is 36 years for you. It means next week is 26 years for me, which is,
Yeah.
I think we're gonna make it to 26.
I think you are.
So
I think you've done a
doing all right.
fantastic job. And there's been days, I'm sure we all have them, where like,
yeah. Well, we've talked to each other on some of those days. So let's do this. Let's talk about our friendship for a minute. So of those 26 years, 24 of them, we've been friends.
And how did that occur?
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of ironic. We were going to church at Sabina Church of Christ, which Susie had grown up in that church. I grew up in Lynchburg, was a member of the Church of Christ there. Was active up there until I was probably in my 21 or 22. There were some things that happened at church as they normally do. He went to another church in Allensburg, Church of Christ, was involved there for a while. And then, again, things happened there that, as they do, and it was, the congregation and the pastor, or the minister at the time, didn't see eye to eye. There were certain things that were going on within the community that he took a stand for and against, and there were some people who were involved in other things that part of that didn't, who had more of a controlling factor than they should. So he resigned his position, took a job in Xenia where he retired, and I see him from time to time. Wonderful man. I won't mention his name, but he was a very competitive guy too. He was a basketball player, softball player. But anyway,
So we met at the Church of Christ
because my mom had grown up in that church. It was started by a gentleman by the name of Ed Bousman, who's now deceased, well-known evangelist, minister in this part of the world, well-known, almost like the Billy Graham of his time in this area. You mentioned the name Ed Bousman, and actually his radio ministry is still, I believe, broadcast on WLW Sunday mornings. I think it still is. It may not be. It's been a while. But,
that's interesting.
But my mom grew up in that church, was baptized there. My friend, a good friend, who was my best friend at the time, his name was Tom Troth. His dad ran a hardware store, and we were very good friends. Now, he had became saved and knew the Lord, shared Jesus freely, in that time, you weren't chastised for it. Of course, nowadays you mentioned Jesus in different versions, and it's a different story. But anyway, I knew he had something that I didn't have, and we talked about it, and we prayed, and I was attending Sunday school and church every Sunday because that's where my mom thought we should be. And fast forward at 12, 13 years of age, I gave my life to the Lord, accepted Christ. Now, what was really even a greater blessing is my father also came forward, gave his life to Christ, and we were baptized the same day. Actually, the same evening, came forward in a morning service on Mother's Day, and made the confession, and so we did it that evening. I knew what I was doing. I knew Jesus wasn't a genie in a bottle. I knew all about that, and again, very on fire, very involved, and it's, as I got older and got involved in other things, I kind of stepped away from church, but my relationship with the Lord, with who Jesus was and what he was in my life, still was very prevalent. Prayer was always a constant in my life. I wouldn't be sitting here if it wasn't for that.
Sure.
And so it got me through that, and then I met Susie, and she says, "Now, you're not going to a church right now." She said, "I need a man who's basically, as it's called out in the Bible, to be the spiritual leader." And I thought, what? Again, not fully comprehending, as the man, the husband, and a believer and follower in Christ. My wife is, we're one and the same, but yet two different entities. I'm the spiritual leader, which was like, that was a whole different game or challenge to me. So we, start going to Sunday school, and then one thing led to another. We started doing kids' church and youth group and just various things. I became a deacon, which was a great blessing. A very good friend of mine who was an elder, who mentored me and tutored me and was a very, very close friend of mine. And it was Mike Jones. You knew Mike very well. Yep. But to get with how we met, you were brought on as an associate pastor. You were to do worship. I believe that was
music
and then maybe work with youth.
And Susie's one of the few people that didn't vote for me.
Yes, true. I remember that
but she was trying to protect me. She wasn't against me. She thought they weren't ready for me.
My wife
is
a visionary and almost a prophet. But we met. They brought you in, and it was a question and answer session. And most everyone agreed that you were the individual for the job. And so this was in 2000. Yeah. So we put it to the vote. You're approved. You're there a year, 2 years, and the elders decide. You aren't doing.
Yeah, we don't need to tell our story. Let's tell our story. We don't need to tell my story.
So the story.
My story will come out. But listen, so you and I met, and then about 6 weeks later, we're at the Y.
We're at the Y. We're at the Y almost every night.
Yeah, and you and my wife are walking together.
Well, and it's interesting because when you first started out, my wife and your wife were doing an aerobic class for an hour. And Susie was one of the few people that actually, I think, reached out to Ann to extend a friendship, to extend an invitation to go to the Y. And of course, her and Susie both share a lot of common ground. They're redhead, indeed. They're just health, makeup and all that stuff. So they were doing their class, and we would walk, and we would share things. And one of the things that you shared was your love for the martial arts. Now I've loved the martial arts, and I've dabbled in them, never taken them because obviously requires too much discipline, which is something I need to work on.
You're just waiting for March.
So we would have discussions. We would just share daily things, and things that you had passion for. And one of your things that you shared with me is that you wanted to be a black belt someday. Mm-hmm. And by your intestinal fortitude and desire not to achieve a black belt to say I'm a black belt, but to set a goal and to do something that you want to do and that you've had your mindset on doing and achieving. It's a great accomplishment if it takes 10 months, 12 months, 12 years. but that's how we started. We just shared, our daily, our day, what happened during the day. How are you feeling? How you adjusting to the new location? Because you're someone who's traveled quite a bit. Wilmington's a different dynamic than it's smaller, but yet it wants to be, like a city. But anyway, we invited you to our home. We shared meals. We shared.
That was the thing. I don't know how many weeks it was. It was not long. You guys said, "Hey, we're going out to eat. You're going out to eat. Why don't we grab our food and go back to our house?"
And that's where it began. But every Thursday evening.
Yeah.
Which was like a precursor to the weekend. Okay, Friday's the next day, and we would all do our thing, and you would do your thing, because you were, doing your thing for ministry and for worship. But we would usually get to Donato's. At that point in time, we would go to Donato's. Met a young lady who we both know very well. She's now a nurse. Always took care of us. Yeah. I always, recognized us and called us by name. So again, after our time at the Y, we would sit and share this meal. We'd share, just share, just enjoy each other's company.
And here we are, 24 years later. We happen to be on a Thursday, which means tonight.
At 9, between 8 and 9, we're together.
We'll be at my house.
And you've allowed us to be a part of your family. Not even thinking at the time what our relationship was going to be at that point in time, other than, I knew you were new to the area, and I've never ever wanted to be an outsider, and I've never had to move and start a new life somewhere, and to develop relationships and friendships. It's sometimes difficult because you don't know how long you're going to be there.
Right.
And you were someone who I wouldn't want to say it was transient, but you were in transition a good deal of your life, where I don't think Ann was, so I don't know, just felt gravitated to extend and help and do whatever I needed. But what made it great was we found a common denominator, common ground. And it's just basically being ourselves. Yeah. But you've allowed us to be a part of your family. We've been there for the birth of your daughters, all the major events, all the failures, the hard times, if you want to call them dark moments. Yeah. We've been there, and use the term hell or high water. This is one of the few things I can say. For 24 years, every Thursday night for 24 years, it went from Donato's, then Kylan was born, your first, then it was our house, and then Lena, and then it was our house, and then our house was smaller, and then when you guys moved into the bigger home,
the kids started going to bed at 8
o'clock. And so we started coming over to your house, and then the twins came along, and it's just, I'm not sure I could face it Thursday not knowing that we were going to have dinner or just, again, it's a time to share. But it's something that started out so simple, just sharing a meal. Just sharing a meal, just sharing. Right. The common denominator is, we look at people and we think, well, they're better than me, or I wish I were them because they seem to be so polished and pulled together. And then you realize none of us really have it pulled together or as polished as we seem. But that's not a bad thing, because I believe, polish each other. I believe, again, a friendship, you lift each other up. And, there was an incident, not long after we met that I showed a less than desirable trait.
Dude,
came angry, frustrated.
20 years ago. And let it go.
I know. But what's funny is I tell people that story, they look at me horrified, and I said, no. And I said, here's the thing. I said, no, I'm not that smart, obviously. I said, what it was is, I think you always put your best foot forward when you're going out on a date or you're developing a relationship, and you always want to present yourself in a great light. I thought, why not present myself in the worst possible light? And I said, these people really want to be my friend and see the goodness in me, then no. And you passed the test. You passed the test.
So I was having a conversation with Dave the other day, and I don't know what order these interviews will come was having a conversation with Dave the other day, and he said, and something will happen, people will show their true colors. And I went, why is that the true colors? What you did 20 years ago, one time, is not who you are.
Yeah.
There's 20 years without blowing up in public.
Yeah.
Now, I know you've gotten angry at other times, but not in public.
Well,
so your true colors are the guy who doesn't get mad in public, right? That's not who you are. You're not a guy who blows up in public. That's not who you are. And if we define each other by our worst moments, we'll never have friends.
Yep.
Right? Because we all have worst moments.
Very
Instead, if we stand with each other in our worst moments and we define each other by our best moments, that's, man. And that's been the thing you and I have been able to do, even when others close to us, sleep with us, don't define us. Sorry, I may not let our wives listen to this one because I'm being a little honest here. But
That's
sometimes they don't define us, but we continue to stand up for each other that way.
Well, and our wives see us differently because they're with us 24/7.
Yeah.
What comes out is they're questioning your thought process, or why do you give a certain individual more ground or leeway than say someone else, or they see someone who has maybe slighted you or they feel is not honest, you have a nefarious attitude, or they have an agenda, and it's I'm going to put on my best behavior when your wife's around, but I know that she knows that I'm kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing, and I have acquaintances that way that my wife tolerates, but how can you be friends with them? Well, I'm not really, I wouldn't say diehard friends, but I would trust them, and if I'm going to get a knife, I'd rather get it from the front than the back, and I know where they are. I know where they stand. If that makes sense,
Yeah.
I'd
there
rather
are people in our lives who are consistent.
But to have someone you've considered a friend for years, you think, and has your back, and stabs you in the back or says something out of character, and I've always tried to operate under the realm of I'm not perfect, nor are they perfect, and if I say something negative about someone, and we're always discussing different things, especially when it comes, to a lot of times it's sports, but then a lot of times the things that are going on in the church, and you say something about someone or you question them, not in a constructive way, but in a way that you wouldn't communicate to them if they were sitting in front of you. Something that, well, so and so said this about you. What? And you're thinking, yeah, I did say that. And then someone says something about you in a conversation, gets back to you, you're devastated. And the first thing that happens is, how could they say that about me? And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
I wasn't so kind. It's okay for us to call out other people. And I know when I'm doing that more so now than I'm used to. I get that conviction. I get that feeling like instead of feeling powerful, I start to feel diminished.
Right.
And I guess that's because I'm under the conviction of the Holy Spirit. We want to get into that, but
we have these friendships, and you and I have been friends now. We've been friends 24 years, and again, some consistent things come up, or experiences together, and you and I have had a lot. Some that nobody else has had. You and I have shared, like you said, the birth of my children. Only Susie have shared that with us. Even my parents didn't get, they were there, but they had to be out of the room. But Ann trusted you.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
she trusted your wife to be there in the birth of our children, because that's how Ann felt. And that's, it's a special relationship, because for you and I, it's been a little bit different from some of my other friends, because we're family. I mean, you are Uncle John and Aunt Susie in every sense of the word, except having blood. Every other way. In fact, they don't have an uncle or aunt in their life like they have you.
Well,
And you guys have chosen again and again. And here's the thing, I'm so grateful, and I'm so grateful for everything you've done for me. But here's the truth, John. You are there for a lot of people that way. There are other people around town now who know you as Uncle John, even though you're not in their life the way you are in my kids' lives. But that's how they know you, because you show up over and over and over for people. What is it that, because I know this isn't the list of questions I gave you, but what is it that makes you say, hey, I'm always going to show up if I can for somebody?
well, I think it boils down to growing up. I had a father, and we have a great relationship now. But I was the oldest. He was always hard on me, and I could never do enough right for him. Could never do anything right for him, and in a lot of ways it held me back from pushing forward and stepping out of my comfort zone and doing things. I there were times I never felt that he was there for me in a physical sense. He provided food and a secure home, and the dynamics were good when they were good. But sometimes when I needed him emotionally, because his parents weren't the type of people, and I think it's because of the generation, I guess, at the times they grew up in, that they weren't really loving and encouraging. And my mom was different family, than my dad's. And my dad was hard on me. My mom was sometimes probably went the other way too much. But I always knew what it felt like to be left out or not encouraged or lifted up. It's like, when I got old enough to participate in sandlot sports, you'd be the last to be chosen. Well, it got to the point where I ended up being chosen first for certain roles or whatever, and I thought that felt good. But the truth of the matter is, I might be the only person that person has at that point in time, to encourage them, to lift them up, and they might not have that. And and I've had people who've stood in the gap for me and who've encouraged me and lifted me up and been there for me, and it's a gift, and I enjoy it. I get great joy out of it. I find when I do that, I feel fulfillment. I just feel, for lack of a better word, complete, good.
So you're encouraged by encouraging other people.
Sure.
Yeah. You got a couple of friends right now going through some stuff. How do you stand in a gap for people who are hurting? You got a friend whose wife is really sick. You got a couple of friends who've lost people.
Yep.
How do you stand in the gap for them and keep yourself full to be able to be there?
There are several instances. One, right now that you're talking about, spouse, the wife is going through a very difficult situation. And we were talking about this because we share Bible study here a little bit. We'll be going to that. I don't know if they were back from Florida or not. But anyway, it's just knowing that someone's there for you to encourage you, to lift you up and say, I lost my mom. And I knew what that was like. I didn't lose a spouse. I've seen my father lose my mom. And we had a friend who lost a son at a very early age. And it's just, and we were a big part of their lives, like we were with you and Ann and the girls. And, when they hurt, we hurt. And they know that. And, I think it's our faith and just encouraging that, it's bad right now. And you know what? People say, well, time will heal things. No, time allows you to process and realize that, no, you'll never be the same, but there's still something to live for. There's something to go forward for, and their friends and family, and you have the memories. And I just try to, sometimes don't have the words. Sometimes I just say, you know what, I love you. I'm there for you. If you need to call me at 3 a.m, cry, call me, cry. People say, well, I almost called you at a certain time. I said, hey, I may not get it on the first ring. I said, but if I see you have a missed call or a message, I will call you back. And, you know, I have a few friends who are that way, and, you know, just knowing someone's there and you're not alone. And I always say that when you find out, and your wife, Ann, has shared this with me about her father, and I kind of went through that with my mom, but my mom passed away on a June day, beautiful morning, and she went peacefully, but I looked around and the world was still going on. People were still going to work. The sun rose. The birds were singing. But yet in our world, my dad's world, my world, you know, Susie shared the grief with me. Our world had stopped. Yeah. And you felt such isolation. Yeah. You felt like it's a hard feeling to describe. But when you know you have people and friends there, and there were a ton who came out, you know, who encouraged us and who sent us, you know, notes and texts and you brought us food, and then you realize that you aren't. But you have to realize that, you know, you're not going through the valley alone. And it's good to have those friends who are there. And like I said, I don't have the answers. Sometimes I may not have the words of comfort. But I just say, you know what, I can be there. If you need a shoulder to cry, yeah. I'll cry with you. I'm not afraid to cry.
Yeah. Now, and this is one of the things I gotta say about you, John. I mean, of all my friends, your gift of just showing up makes it special, because sometimes just showing up with our busy lives and our busy schedules and our busy things, sometimes showing up is the best thing you can do as a friend, is just show up. And I have, you know, I'm interviewing all 9 guys, and all 9 guys I think would show up if they could, but I think you'd get there first. I just did.
Just because I live closer.
Well, yeah, you actually live closer to me than any of them. But I also think part of that is just your makeup is drop everything and show up. Drop everything and show up. And so, you know, I guess I'm gonna wrap this thing up by saying thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for showing up. Thank you for being a part of our lives. My kids don't know what to do. Wouldn't know what to do without an Uncle John and Aunt Susie in their lives.
Before you wrap it up, there was some, you know,
Yeah.
one of the questions you had put out there was what event or incident?
What memory do you have?
Well, there are many, but the
Yeah.
one that really sticks out, and I'll make it quick.
No, we got time.
I'm a big fan of something called professional wrestling, which is a man's soap opera, okay? I'm a fan of an individual who's about to retire.
Well, that's the understatement of the century.
I met this guy 4 years ago. He is a Christian, and he's got a wonderful witness. His name is Steve Borden, a.k.a. Sting.
Steve.
Well, there was a period where he embraced what he called the crow Sting, the crow figure, the white face, the long hair, the black, and so on and so forth. So one year, it was Halloween. It was trick or treat. We won't say beggar's night, Halloween, Halloween, whatever you want to call it. But there was a knock on our door right before beggar's night was supposed to kick off. And so I go to the door. Susie said, someone's at the door. So I go to the door, and I open the door, and there's this figure standing there. And I'm thinking, Sting has showed up on my front door? Step? What?
I'm not tall enough to be him, but yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh, I was... and then there was, of course, that's one incident, and then there was the incident about the birthday robot. That's another story. Uncle Al. I could sit here for a long time and spew stories, but you've allowed us to be a part of your family. We talk about friends, and then we talk about family, and you've always said your door's always open. There at your house, same here.
I might go to bed, but you can stay.
That's right. Turn out the light. Turn off. Yeah. Don't abuse the surroundings there, so to speak. But I've been blessed.
Yeah.
That's never lost on me. the relationship that we have.
Yeah, me too, though. You guys have been there for us, and been there for us, and been there for us. And we've gone through so many ups and downs in 24 years.
And the truth of the matter is, without sounding inappropriate, I think there are times that Ann and I
Mm-hmm.
are on a different level. The only other woman in my life that reads me, or any human being for that matter, and you read me pretty well. You have a daughter that does too, but
Yeah, but my wife
Ann
has discernment.
always knows her, my wife and her, but we share, I don't know,
Well,
I
it's
don't know,
a
she
love-
feels comfortable, and I don't know, I think it's because she said sometimes you remind me of my dad
Yeah.
because of his love for sports. He was a big guy.
He was pretty easygoing.
He was probably a lot easier going than I was. He was a Vietnam veteran. But that's not lost on me either. So, you know, it's twofold. You're a very close friend, and you are. And we share the love of Chick-fil-A to kick it from here,
It's
right?
a good thing to share.
But you know, again, a different dynamic. You and Ann, you know, some of my friends are all guys. I do have. I was thinking about this on the way over. I have 4 or 5 guys that I consider probably. Of course, one's deceased now. Of course, he's in a different place, and he's in a better place. But then there's a slew I could call,
Right.
and it might be a while for them to get here, but they would be here. But you're talking about showing up. You've shown up, and a lot of times for me that you didn't know you showed up for me just by showing up, just by being in your presence,
Yeah, same. Yeah,
I mean,
just showing up.
without ever saying a word. I mean,
Yeah.
because there's this, I don't know, comfortability factor, the fact that you build a friendship on good, bad, and indifferent, and every day is not a good day, and you can't live in the valley every day. I mean, some people do, but I try not to live in the valley every day. But I'm encouraged each day, and I says, Thursday's a day I look forward to.
Yeah.
When I was working, especially Thursday, because the day before Friday, it's Friday Eve, right? And we get to hang out with you guys.
Hang out, get your cup
And we
of
share,
coffee.
it's great because the women are in the kitchen talking, and we're discussing the more important
That's
things,
right.
like what action
Who's
film.
gonna win the next game against the Vikings? And yeah, no, it's so. One last thing, and then I don't know how this turned out. I'll clip it. But, I have the great fortune of having my family, my brothers, are 2 of my best friends in the world. But I also have the great fortune of having a friend who has become my family. And that makes this special.
That is not lost on me. That is not lost on me. I consider that a great blessing. Because Susie and I talk about this constantly. We weren't able to have children, but we've had people of the Jones family for one. But you guys in particular, you have allowed us to be your blood, your family, your extension of who you are and what your girls are, and and how you allow us that there's not a day goes by that's not lost on me. Truly. Certain things you take for granted, but no. I was thinking about that on the way over, and it's one of the things I look forward to. And I know it's just one day, and sometimes we're together more, but I know that one day, no matter what is going on,
Yeah.
unless you're in another part of the world and we're in another
Yeah.
part of the world, or one of us is sick or something, but we're always there.
Yeah.
And it's like, if do you need anything? Go to the store, or you're not feeling well, can I get you something? It's just, those are great gifts. I remember, the George Bailey movie.
Mm-hmm.
George Bailey at the end of It's a Wonderful Life, and this little caption.
No man is a failure who has friends.
And I am.
Yeah.
I truly am. And I appreciate the fact that you, well, felt comfortable enough to want to discuss this
Yeah.
as you did, as we did. I tried not to make it too complicated.
Well,
Straightforward.
yeah.
Listen, friendship is hard. It takes intentionality. But with intentionality, it becomes a joy and a strength in your life. So listen, let's be friends.